Thanks very much. Pleased to be here tonight. So, one of the earliest memories of tonight's Schrodinger's poet was of her father reading to her Alexander Pope's translation of the Iliad as she peered at him through the bars of her crib. As she got a little bit older, he would recite heroic couplets, waiting at the end of each line for her to supply the rhyme, which, as you can imagine, is perfect training for a budding poet. Between the ages of 7 and 16, she attended a day school and received the kind of privileged elementary education that one could only dream of for one's children these days. 9 years of French with teachers who spoke no English, 5 years of Latin, history, math, science, a healthy dose of Greek, Roman, French, British, and American literature. After such an auspicious beginning, she went on to attend Mount Holyoke College many years after her idol Emily Dickinson had done so, and then attended Radcliffe College, the women's affiliate of Harvard University, about a decade or so before Adrienne Rich would. During those years of study, Robert Frost and Wallace Stevens sat in on her classes, contributing to and reading to the students. She remembered Stevens as a funny, frank man sitting informally among the students with his tie loosened, which is saying something for Stevens. She also remembered the day T.S. Eliot appeared in one of their classes, determined not to mix with the faculty, but rather to, in her words, talk shop with the students. I would have loved to have been in that classroom. I am talking about the only American poet, most likely, ever to release her premier book of poetry at the tender age of 83 years, wow, after having gone completely blind from glaucoma. Virginia Hamilton Adair. That's the picture on the cover of her book, right here. It's a version of it, actually. Wow. Adair was born in the Bronx in 1913. Her father was an amateur poet, lawyer, and insurance executive, actually a colleague of Wallace Stevens, whose name I can't resist telling you was Robert Browning Hamilton. Both of her parents wrote poetry for fun, and her home was filled with the sense that poetry is an essential and intimate part of life, not connected to necessarily money or celebrity, as most of us in this room would know. Her first poem appeared at age 6. She produced over 1,000 throughout her lifetime. About 70 were published during the 30s and 40s in magazines such as the Saturday Review, the Atlantic, and the New Republic. She wrote almost daily, but her job as a literature professor at California Polytechnic Institute, the demands of marriage and mothering and 3 children, and what she perceived as the, quote, gamesmanship of the publishing world prevented her from releasing her book until a mere 8 years before her death. She died in 2004. I was first intrigued by her work in a December 1995 issue of The New Yorker. Her poem, titled God to the Serpent, begins, "Beloved snake, perhaps my finest blueprint, how can I not take pride in your design?" Another poem from her first collection similarly responds to their creation story, casting Adam and Eve as confused tenants evicted by an irate landlord from a place called Eden Gardens. And this is a quote from it. "Those goons with the flamethrower, you better believe we went quietly." Other poems included in her first collection, called Ants on the Melon from 1996, have a similar forthrightness and ironic humor. Brad Leithauser of the New York Times Book Review commented, "Given how much darkness the book contains, meditations on the atom bomb, her husband's death, a drowned girl, the literal darkness of blindness, it casts a surprisingly bright afterglow." I didn't notice the afterglow so much as the way language punches through experience. For example, the seduction of a man peeling an orange on his wife's naked body, in which all senses interpenetrate. Tiny explosions of spicy oil. You place peeled discs of gold in a bizarre pattern on my white body. Rearranging, you bend and bite the discs to release further their eager scent. I say, stop, you're tickling. My eyes still on the page. Aromas of groves arise. An array of female experience, as one might expect, can be found in this book, given that it's a culmination of a lifetime's work, in a sense, or collection. But somehow starker or unexpected, like this. The August of my hysterectomy, I lay stunned in tidewater heat. Or one of the many pieces in the aftermath of her husband's inexplicable suicide, shooting himself in the head in their bedroom. In the attic, dust wears your coat, a window of sky where your face ought to be. It's almost haiku-like, really. Or this wry aphorism in a man's voice about one of his several wives. Women, like teeth, should be strong, but not prominent. She is not above self-parody on the theme of aging, as in Reunion Between Planes, that ends with an echo of Tennyson's Crossing the Bar. I'll read that one to you in its entirety because it's quite good. I'm the old school friend sweeping out of the sky like a Halloween witch in my Hollywood shades and my stretchable wig and a girdle of groans. Since we shrieked our goodbyes in a shower of rice, my babies have grown beards, been jailed and divorced. My husband, the broker, embezzled, absconded, is living abroad with a kennel of bitches. I remember your dad who fondled our bottoms, your mom with her bottle she hid in the sofa. My God, they were younger by decades than we are, crossing into the dusk of this terminal bar. Aging like death's seductive pull towards the surge is something that must be faced, if not with humor, then at least with acute ears and steady eyes, as in this part of the poem. Oh, listen for the notes, the last white chord struck trailing on the sand, before it brings the curious and the screams. Face the drowned girl before the blanket comes and the grave man. But I'll end on something a little lighter, called Now You Need Me. It's actually kind of ingenious. When the rain comes, you remember our old closeness, humping along in the wet. You grope the dark where I hang morosely by my crooked neck. You pull off my cover, shake me till my ribs jingle and a moth flies out. Your hand reaches under my black skirt and up one leg, thin as a cane, until I open wide with a rusty squawk, hovering above you like a dark and loving raven, said the old umbrella, her night full of holes. Thank you.